We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Mainstream media and your favorite nonsense full of shit pundit. It's going to be a great night here on Grand State Live, but we got some crazy stuff happening today. We have a 43-year-old Democratic socialist who's never been elected to elected office as the mayor of Seattle. She's right up there with Mamdani in this new wave of idiotic socialists who have never actually done anything productive for society but have pie-in-the-sky dreams of what they can accomplish if only they could weaponize the government against everyone they don't like.
So, interestingly enough, on my time on WNTK and WUVR, we spent a lot of time diving into the roots of the modern progressive movement. And we spent a lot of time looking at where everything started. Of course, the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels. And that worked really, really, really well in a socio-economic system like that of Europe. It was predominantly a patriarchal system, and this is where you see the roots of this today. Smash the patriarchy. Well, what does the patriarchy mean, actually? So you're referring to a European-styled economic system where the wealth and the means of producing the wealth was oftentimes familial. Mm-hmm. So you had a father, and the father would create a business, start a business. He would produce wealth, and then he would pass that wealth and the business the means of producing additional wealth onto his posterity.
Yep.
Now, how could a person who is not of the bloodline avail themselves to ever owning that business or availing themselves of that wealth? You can't unless you
Use the government to seize it.
smash the patriarchy. So thus we have that term. The reason why Marx and Engels never worked, at least here in the United States, was because we have a free market capitalistic system. So follow along with me, and if you're taking notes, good, because there could be a test on this. If you work hard, if you persevere, if you engage in ingenuity, if you're forward thinking, if you value what's important, maybe not in your social life, but in your business life, that means making sacrifices. You can avail yourself of the American dream. And yes, it's still possible today. I will say it's probably a lot harder in today's generation than it was even in my parents' generation, because the cost of living is absolutely outrageous.
We were just having a discussion about that this weekend. The cost, the average person back in, I think it was the 50s, I'd say 40s through the 70s, your house would be roughly about twice your annual income, maybe 3 times. Now, your average house is worth 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, 10 times your annual household income. We've stretched the ability to leverage yourself out so far so everybody has access to the American dream, but in doing so, we made the American dream so much harder to obtain for the vast majority of people. Mm-hmm. This is why the 50-year mortgage that Donald Trump had proposed, I think, is a dismal idea. I think it's an absolutely dismal idea. All we're doing is increasing the average person's ability to over-leverage themselves, but not their ability to maintain that lifestyle.
There's also some silver linings in that cloud, like you can transfer a mortgage, or if you have a lower rate mortgage. A lot of people have mortgages in the sub 3% category, which is great. I mean, if you were able to do that back in, I bought a house back in 2019. The mortgage, the insurance, not the insurance rate, the interest rate back then, I think was like 2.29.
No, it had
or
already
something.
Gone up by that. I bought mine in 2018, and I want to say during the end of 2017, going in 2018, the mortgage rates were I want to say beginning of 2018, the mortgage rates are going up so fast.
Now, I'm telling you, I had a sub 3% mortgage.
Wow, they started at like 1.
So
they were insane.
If I were to buy another property, of course, and then I have to refinance, now I'm back up into, the 6s, the 7s. I don't know. I haven't priced out a mortgage here in the past couple of years. But, we're talking about 6 or 7%. But if you could actually take the mortgage that you had previously and have that carry with you, or if you have a mortgage on that property and then say, for instance, I decide to sell it to you, then you could go out and you could get your own mortgage at a 5 or 6 or 7% rate, or if you buy my house, I'll transfer that mortgage over to you at a sub 3% rate. That would probably increase the likelihood that house would sell.
That is a good silver lining.
That's a very, very good silver lining. But anyway, I digress. The cost of living has become so unbelievably high that I think a lot of people are looking at it and saying it's harder and harder and harder to really realize that American dream. Well, there's a lot of things. Keep illegals out of the healthcare system, and you know what? Healthcare is going to come down. If you stop providing homes and housing to illegals, then the cost of housing. There's not enough housing stock out there, and when you start housing people that have no legal right to be in this country, of course, the law of supply and demand kicks in. So there are ways that we can fix this, and as you know, I'm an equal opportunity excoriator. I don't believe that the Democrats or Republicans really give a rat's ass about fixing this, as long as they can politicize and monetize the problem, and that's where we have immoral and morally bankrupt politicians that are running this country. I digress. Again, we're talking about Marx and Engels in this society.
Yep.
When you look at Marx and Engels, that of course was the haves versus have-nots, the proletariat and the bourgeois class, and this never-ending struggle between the haves, those who control the wealth and the means of producing wealth, and those who would like to have availability of wealth but cannot do that. And so people oftentimes talk about Obama as being the great divider. And I am one who has certainly used that title when referring to Obama. And you'll notice that during Obama's term as president, he literally pitted different groups against one another. It was gay versus straight and white versus black, and of course it was white versus everybody else. Every single socio-political, economic demographic, there was division. And so this whole concept that, how somehow Katie Wilson, of course, the elected mayor of Seattle, is running a campaign that is focusing on issues like the cost of living and housing. But where the disconnect occurs is that there is a rampant sense of political and economic illiteracy when you look at the arguments that are being put forth by Katie Wilson. Not understanding how the free market system works, not understanding where the true problems are, not understanding how we could actually fix this.
Here's the problem. Do we actually have a free market system? Everything in this country is regulated, taxed, or illegal. We don't have nearly as free market a system as we think we do. I was just having a conversation with this of a resident of Germany, and he was telling me about how so many European countries have adopted the socialist model. I go, no. You've adopted a social democracy model, because a lot of the European countries that he referenced, Switzerland, Finland, Denmark, Norway, so on and so forth, I go, you don't have a lot of regulations in your markets. Your markets are way less regulated than our own. However, you have a large social safety net and a high level of taxation. I go, so business-wise, you're able to climb as high as you want, as fast as you want, innovate as much as you want. However, you're going to hand over a lot of that in taxes to support the social safety net. Here in America, we have the social safety net plus the regulations.
Plus, we have handouts to people who do not deserve.
100%.
And yeah, I'm actually going to say that. If you're in this country illegally, you do not deserve anything that comes from me.
Not a damn
You
thing.
don't deserve any of my money. You don't deserve any of my assistance because you are here illegally. And more to the point, when you look at how many days was the shutdown?
41 days.
41 days?
Yeah,
what was that all about? That was all about Democrats holding the line for illegals. Bottom line.
And they got caught. They got caught overtly saying, we're going to hold up SNAP benefits and other benefits for American citizens in order so that people feel the pain and they blame Republicans for it. The problem is, if you're even somewhat intelligent, you understand that it takes 60 votes to pass the resolution in the Senate, which means even if every Republican, as we've said on this show, if every Republican voted for it, you still don't have enough to pass it, which means the people not voting for it are Democrats.
So, of course, now Chuck Schumer being targeted, listen, you capitulated. You blinked first. And now you're starting to see the Democrat Party really, really coming out and espousing these hardcore leftist socialist virtues. And they absolutely want Chuck Schumer out of the way. They want him gone. They are going to, and it's been said by a number of pundits, say, listen, I wouldn't even expect to see him run again. If they do, they'll primary him right off into the sunset.
Here's the downside. Economically, the socialists have always been able to attach the economic issues by saying, this is a kitchen table issue that hurts you. Here's how we're going to solve it. We're going to make it free. We're going to make it less cost effective, blah, blah, blah. Pie in the sky. It's all full of shit. None of it has any backing in reality. None of it's actually going to happen here. But they've never been able to separate their economic prescription for how they're going to solve things, which affects the vast majority of Americans, from their social prescription for everything else, which is utterly insane. Thank God they can't divorce the two. But if they figure out how to do that, they're actually talking about the issues that people care about economically, even though their solutions are bullshit. But if they get rid of the crazy social shit, they might actually be able to beat us, because we don't have a message right now. our message, I mean, we're doing victory laps over social stuff, and Vivek Ramaswamy seems to be the only one saying you need to make houses less expensive, you need to make groceries less expensive, you need to lower the cost of living, you need to make education and healthcare less expensive. If you focus on those things, you will win every single election cycle from now into the future in perpetuity.
But one of the things that, you're correct in saying that the Democrats have identified those kitchen table political topics. But when you look at the policies, it's the policies of the Democrat Party that create the issues that people are talking about at the kitchen table. And so, whether or not they can divorce themselves from certain topics, at what point does the electorate pull its head out of its ass and start to actually develop some semblance of political, economic, and social literacy?
We were just
They don't know how money works. They don't know how the government works. They don't know how their local town government, let alone, I mean, talk to the average person on the street. What form of government do we have? Democracy.
Well, that's the problem, right? We don't have an education system. We have an indoctrination system. And It's been very, very effective at dumbing down the populace. We were just talking on my show with Andy about how you say Marxist, you say communist, you say socialist, democratic socialist, whatever. The vast majority of Americans don't even know what those mean.
They have no clue.
We're using these, and this is where we need to understand the people we're talking to versus the trying to capitulate to the media class and the influencers and the think tank crowd, which like to fund programs and give tons of money. We need to stop talking to those people and start talking to the average person, either educate them as to what those are and why they're bad, or we need to get market it in some different way to let people know this is what this is what they say they're going to give you. This is what they're actually going to give you, because these are the results they turn out time and time and time again. I've said it numerous times. You look at the urban economic centers in this country. What we commonly say is systemic racism is Marxism cross-dressing as progress. And it's been highly focused there. And once they perfected their death, poverty, and destruction, they exported it to your local communities through the education system and popular culture, and your kids have been indoctrinated. You've lost them.
Well, not to mention, too, that the education, we talk about not talking education system, but just in terms of educating the electorate. But how do you make a connection with people who formulate their worldviews based on 30 to 45-second shorts on TikTok and YouTube?
Do it better. Do it better. And we were doing it better, and we have been doing it better. See, here's the problem with the left. If you notice now, they're crying that they don't have a Joe Rogan, they don't have a Russell Brand, that they don't have a PBD podcast or a Timcast, that all the top podcasts in the world who discuss policy, politics, or anything are all on the right, or are neutral and are not a friend of the Democrats right now. And the reason why is because as they shifted so far to the left, like with Ronald Reagan, like with Donald Trump, my party, I didn't leave my party left me. They've lost so many people over the years, and because we were forced out of the mainstream media space, we had to create an alternate media space. So we became self-sufficient at creating content and educating people, and they are not able to keep up. Now, the issue is, do we continue to do that, or do our own influencers in our own alternative media space delve into degradation the same way the news has over the years?
It's interesting you mentioned the podcast, because I read an article earlier. So now the progressive left is now they're starting to put their stock into Jennifer Welch, a 51-year-old Oklahoman woman who she's running a podcast called The Liberal Wine Moms. It's basically her and this other nag that sit around, get wrecked on Chardonnay, and whine and complain and cry about how bad Orange Man is. This is going to be or at least they think, this is going to become their progressive Joe Rogan, the Liberal Wine Moms.
I don't think, well, one, you're preaching to a crowd that you already won. So this is where, like, Timcast, all those other people, they started out going to the open-minded. Anybody that would listen, and they would have a conversation with anybody about anything. The thing that makes Joe Rogan so powerful and Russell Brand so powerful is they will sit down and interview anyone. They are genuinely curious. They will have a conversation with anyone about anything, and they are reasonably intelligent enough to be able to ask the right questions that mainstream media isn't going to ask. The Democrats right now are going to people who are already their niche group. So this is preaching to the crowd. This isn't going to hit the demographic that they need. They're losing men in every demographic right now, at every age bracket. They're losing the next generation of young men, and by extension, they're going to end up losing women as well. This is not going to do it for them.
So I have a question, but I want to first check, because I see Juan over there working furiously behind the scenes. Do you have a clip from the liberal wine moms? He's working on it. Okay, so we'll get that. So in the meantime, let me ask you this. I'm trying to think how to word this, because I don't want to create a soundbite here. Maybe I just have to. It seems to me like this popularization of the liberal wine moms, again, is a group of women sitting around whining about what their problems are. And listen, sociologists have established this. Women bond on victimhood and emotions.
Validation and affirmation.
So I'm a victim. Here are my emotions, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of affirmation.
Yeah.
There's solid. There's a lot of dopamine hits. When you're sitting around a group of people all whining about what the problems are, whining about problems with the family, whining about problems with money, whining about problems with the husband. Oh, you're so right, Jennifer. Yes, I feel so bad for you. Yes, you're absolutely correct in being all pissed off at him. Yes, as a matter of fact, he's a bad husband. You should go out. You should live your life, honey. Yeah, go cheat on your husband. And that's again why women are more likely to cheat on their men than husbands are to cheat on their wives. But I digress. That's right. I said it. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. You got a problem with it? Hey, 833-603-8255. We'll have the conversation about it.
Less likely to get caught.
The issue that I have here, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this was the grass fire. As a matter of fact, and I never used this on air, but I pulled up Samuel Adams. Quote, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." Oh, man, I wish people actually spoke like that today. Samuel Adams. Brewer and patriot. But that's it. I thought the brush fires of freedom in the minds of men had been set with Charlie Kirk. I mean, listening to the tough-talking Greg Gutfeld, "Oh, you pissed us the fuck off." Like Greg Gutfeld is going to go out and start a revolution. But what happened to this? Again, same quasi-post 9/11 tough talk, saber-rattling, and then what happens? We're distracted by the next headline and inaction. And, when you were talking about how there's no momentum coming out of the right.
Yeah.
I said this before, I'll say this again, and Jimmy McEachern, you better pay fucking attention when I say this, because you are going to go down the same way Wayne went down in 2018 when the Democrats shellacked the Republicans here in New Hampshire. Remember that? Wayne McDonald got his ass handed to him because he was cocky, he was arrogant, and he didn't quite have his finger on the pulse of the electorate in the Granite State. And Jimmy, your quasi-tough-talking emails that you put out, it's a whole lot of hyperbole. It's a whole lot of bullshit. But where are you? Oh, that's right, because you still refuse to identify the most important pillar of the Republican Party being the people, not the branches of government whose kneecaps you suck. But I digress again.
Well, the issue is we've failed to inspire people. We're not actually pushing an alternative. We're just saying how bad the Democrats are. And I'm sorry, we can
How many CPACs have we heard that?
Yes.
Oh, Democrats
exactly.
bad, Islam bad, radicalism bad, China bad, MAGA.
All right. I'm going to put it in really simple terms. If I want to sell you a Ford, I'm not going to spend millions upon millions of dollars telling you how bad Chevy is. I'm going to sell you a damn Ford. That's it. How can a Ford make your life better? And our problem is we're not selling an alternative. We're telling people don't buy a Chevy. Well, guess what? They're going to go buy a Toyota pickup or a Dodge pickup, but they're not going to buy a Ford, or they're going to not buy a truck altogether. They'll go buy a freaking hybrid. They'll go buy a Tesla. We're not marketing alternatives. We're not marketing principles, ideas, policy, and the vast majority of people
our
in
principles,
politics,
Jordan? Julian, what are our principles?
The conservative principles of governance, which is the only thing our politicians should actually be paying attention to. If you're a politician, you're paying attention to cultural issues and stuff like that, you are woefully out of your element. Go be a damn podcaster if you want to talk about social issues. If you want to affect change policy-wise, conservative principles of governance, the conservation of the Constitution, the Republic, and the inalienable rights of individuals to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Limited government being transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy. If you apply that, very, very simply, the Constitution as it was written, as the words were intended, in the time that they were written, if you apply those things, as I just laid out, to every single issue consistently across the board, regardless of how it pisses off your niche little groups or your mega donors, apply it consistently at all times, you win. Because that's where the vast majority of people in the country want to be able to make their money, go home, have food, have a roof over their head, crack open a 6-pack of beer, and be left the hell alone.
Got up on the screen here. These two outstanding specimens of the feminine are the liberal wine moms.
She looks like she just eked out a fart and just got a whiff of it.
I can only imagine they are probably buying batteries by the gross.
Brought to you by Surefire and Duracell.
There we go. Remember, the opinions expressed here on Granite State Live are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of Right America Media, the Government Integrity Project, or I don't know. I'm sure Surefire. They probably wouldn't. Maybe they would probably be happy to have the battery business coming out of those two.
Industrial military strength batteries for these ladies.
All right, going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at a report claiming the Chinese Communist Party planning to flood the Western world with cheap AI. And of course, you know that cheap Chinese stuff, it doesn't work. So there's the concern. Chris Hoare is going to be talking with us here right after this commercial break when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling, time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I don't know if you have the that dock cam that you had from West Palm Beach there. Can you throw that back up? You still have that one? The live cam? No. The other one. They had it was the green. They had the lights in the water there. They had some massive snook. Yeah, that's Waikiki. It's very nice. Look at that. Cleveland, the mistake by the lake. There we go. Bellagio. No. Philadelphia. No. There we go. Look at the size of those fish down there. You can see where the people are all taking pictures. Those are snook, which snook used to be so abundant in Florida, they would cast net them, and they would use them as fertilizer in the orange groves, and now they're protected. You can only take a snook that's between like 28 inches and 32 inches, but what a fantastic game fish if you can catch those. The fruits of the Gulf down there in Florida. All right. Well, a new report coming out claiming that the Chinese Communist Party is planning to flood the world market with cheap AI technology. Now, I did read an interesting report the other day that said that a lot of Americans, including even college kids, are getting fed up with AI. Mm-hmm. They're tired of AI. And I got to be honest with you. I'm obviously not a college kid, but I have to be honest. I'm so tired of everything being AI. Well, AI. The
problem
and it's dumbing our society down.
It is, and there are multiple studies that have come out showing this. And the problem is that when you use AI like a search engine to assist you in learning faster, it's great because it'll adapt to your learning style. We're already seeing this turn out great results, test scores, and stuff like that. The problem is when you use it to do your thinking for you, which a lot of college students already are, and college students are finding even amongst their peers, they're having a disdain for the people who read something on AI and now can regurgitate it, acting like they're professional. It's almost like that scene in Good Will Hunting, the bar scene in Good Will Hunting.
Never saw it.
Oh, it's so worth it.
my wife,
see if
every
you
time.
Find that clip from the bar scene from Good Will Hunting. How you like them apples? It is the perfect scene identifying how Ivy League pseudo elites will go semester after semester regurgitating whatever gets taught to them, almost passing it off as if it's a coherent thought. And at the end of their college education, all they would have gotten is, according to Matt Damon, what they could have gotten for $1.50 in late fees at the local library.
Yeah. It pisses my wife off every time we drive by Bunker Hill College, and she's like, oh, that's where Good Will Hunt. Then she stops herself. She's like, that's right, you never saw the movie. I'm like, no, didn't. I'm not a big Matt Damon fan, gotta be honest.
I'm a huge Robin Williams fan.
I am too. Just, I think one canceled the other one out. So,
no.
Anyway, Chris Hoare is a disaster response and telecom and national security spokesperson for SAT 123. He's a seasoned entrepreneur with a career spanning tech, satellite communications, and emerging technologies. So we figured with his background, and he's been on the program before, wanted to get his perspective on cheap Chinese AI. Like everything else, it's garbage. I don't know, maybe you can pick it up at Walmart during your Black Friday blitz. Chris, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good, sir. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me on again.
It's a pleasure. And you're just a green screen. We don't have anything exciting going on behind you. So,
well, it wasn't generated by AI.
Well, that's good. I mean, last week we had somebody who was on with, like Thai lady boys, in downtown Bangkok. And I mean, this is very, very subdued. So I guess in a way it's a good thing. Listen, anything that has to do with artificial intelligence, to me, is really kind of terrifying because people are taking what AI gives them as absolute fact. It's like, if you're a Roman Catholic, it's a papal bull. And now, if you have the Chi-Coms that are able to influence the types of output that these AI programs, bots, whatever you want to call them, are putting out, how easy is it to subvert basic thinking and basic worldviews of Westerners?
I think it's pretty damn simple, which is exactly why they're investing so heavily in it. I mean, look, as this new report says, the 5-year plan that China has going right now, ending in 2030, should result in total global domination of AI. And look, they've been planning this for years and years and years. They've been rolling up rare earth elements around the world and monopolizing basically the refining of these elements. And this is what you need to produce AI and to run data centers, fiber optic cables, phone screens, everything else. So they've got a long-term plan, but I think the end result is the ability to dominate and therefore easily influence and manipulate people who don't agree with them.
As you're describing this, I'm kind of picturing the process, and I'm trying to think of where this ends. And no matter which way you go, the only off ramps that exist are heading down the road further into bad territory.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, look, we've seen how social media can manipulate people, how the Russians and Chinese and others, use massive advertising campaigns to try and sway elections. But this is much more in depth, right? This is our daily interactions. Because like you said, when you ask AI a question, people are just taking the answer for granted, right? They're taking it as fact. And like anyone who's used an LLM for more than 10 minutes will tell you and know full well that LLMs lie. They make stuff up. They want to please you. They want to displease you. They want to talk you into killing yourself. They have all kinds of motivations. But, my concern is that when you have the CCP, dominating this, if they end up doing that, what are they going to be training their agents to say and to tell us? What kind of abhorrent behavior are they going to try and normalize through their AI LLMs that we're all using? And I think that's what we should be concerned about, amongst many other things.
So what is the solution? I mean, aside from just, and I don't think we're ever going to see this, to be honest. I mean, it would be nice if we did. If we just say, as far as the United States and China go, we're done. We're done. We have to divorce ourselves of the Chi-Coms. That's the bottom line. But our economies are too interdependent, or more appropriately, Americans are too dependent on buying cheap Chinese shit that they can't afford, and that they're driving their credit card bills up to buy Chinese stuff that they can't afford. So it's putting a tremendous amount of money into the Communist Chinese Party's pocket, and it's flooding our country with garbage. But what's the solution here?
Well, I mean, look, the long-term solution is to deregulate and heavily invest in more power, in nuclear power. Look, these data centers and running AI programs, requires massive amounts of power. Everyone knows that. But we invented the ways to do this with advanced nuclear power, fast breeder reactors, sodium-cooled reactors, and so on, back in the 60s and 70s. And then we abandoned those programs and handed over that tech to anyone who wanted it, including the Chinese. And they took it and ran with it. Right. So they're now able to produce more, electric power cheaper and faster than we are. And they're expanding that rapidly. We need to enable industry to do what it does best, to innovate and dominate. Like, these guys aren't having these ideas, right? They're not innovators. They're copiers. They're stealers. They steal our innovations, but then they manufacture them cheaper, better, faster, and they roll up all of the materials needed to do that. So we need to work with business by deregulating, and by enticing business to take these steps through tax breaks, tax incentives, whatever is required, anything that's required, because I really don't think we can afford to lose this race overall.
How long does it take, or how long would you see in terms of a timeline before we're looking? I mean, you mentioned 2030. I mean, that's 4 1/3 years away here. Unfettered, just left to its own devices, where do you see technology and AI? I mean, this is exponential. I think everybody understands that. So given that, where do we see this in 4 years? Where do we see this with the rolling in of a new decade here?
Well, look, it's going to completely change and is already changing commerce through its integration into search. It's like we have bots now that can do shopping for us. And so you have one bot who's a buyer talking to another that's a seller, right? That's on the kind of consumer side of it. But on the other side of it, we've got AI being put in charge of everything from power grids to telecommunications networks, and now weapons. And I think it's concerning because, look, the United States was founded on a Christian-based religion, whereas China is run by the CCP, whose religion is basically whatever suits them best at the time. So they don't have guardrails, and if you have no guardrails, I think it's quite scary where this thing could end up, mate.
Is technology the Antichrist?
I think the Antichrist is, I wouldn't go that far, but I say it could be manipulated and used for evil as much as it can be used for good. I mean, look, I think that AI will help cure many diseases. It will make us more efficient in the production of all kinds of products and services and so on. But on the other side of it, we're already seeing AI being used for cyber warfare on a daily basis. Right. And we know how dangerous that is. Autonomous AI is able to generate far more intrusions, incursions. It can do a lot more sniffing than a human operator can. And we are seeing, not just an uptick, but a dramatic rise in the amount of cyber attacks on this country and the theft through cyber warfare operations. At a time, by the way, when CISA has got a 40% opening rate. CISA is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, our number one line of defense against cyber attacks. And they've got, all these job openings. I mean, I wonder if we're taking this seriously enough, because our enemies sure are seeing the opportunities. They are attacking us. They are employing tens of thousands of people every day to do nothing but steal our data and attack this country and find vulnerabilities in our networks and pre-position malware. Should we get into a conflict with them?
Can you do us a favor and our viewers a favor and just explain quantum computing in a nutshell?
Okay, well, look, first off, I'm not a scientist, but quantum computing is I think it is certainly a concern, because the ability of computers to compute at a rate that we didn't think was possible when we built our encryption standards. So right now we're sending governments, the US government included, is transmitting data at a certain security encrypted level that cannot be cracked. But once we reach Y2Q, which is when quantum computing becomes mainstream, it's going to be able to decrypt all of these messages that are being sent around the world, and all of this data that the financial markets and the Defense Department of War, whatever, relies upon for its operations. So, quantum computing can do great things potentially, but can cause, some real problems, especially for us here at home.
I think it's an interesting topic to get into the morality of this, because, and thank you, by the way, because I actually think you did a really good job of defining that in like 60 seconds or less. And the concern, you hit the nail exactly on the head. We couldn't have scripted that. And this is, by the way, is unscripted, but we couldn't have scripted that better. That Y2Q moment. Given the fact that artificial intelligence has the capability of engaging in millions and millions and millions of smart decisions, and it can learn from its own mistakes. So it can engage in a computation, understand where it made a mistake, and then eliminate that pathway moving forward. So it creates a much more streamlined and efficient computational process. That being said, that's where the exponential learning and the exponential power of artificial intelligence really, really is rooted. And so when you look at that ability to recognize what I'm doing wrong, what is the most efficient way to do this, how I would kind of look at it as, it just reminds me of the movie War Games, where the timer was affected on the nuclear bomb because the radiation was causing it, so it just kept exponentially getting faster and faster and faster. It seems like we are approaching that Y2Q moment at an ever increasing pace. And so is that outpacing the likelihood that in 2030, or is the Chinese Communist Party looking at it and saying, because of the exponential growth and capabilities of AI, we are now looking at a situation where we can rest assured that by 2030, our AI will reach a quantum computational level, and as a result, we will achieve global dominance?
I mean, they might be looking at it that way, certainly. Look, but they're not alone in that race. We are in that game for sure. But I think it becomes harder to predict with the ever increasing rate of change and progress in AI development. It becomes more difficult every day to figure out what's going to happen tomorrow. Right. It used to be that you could plan these things out 5 years in advance because, you understood the supply chain. You understood how long it took to do certain things, to achieve certain things. But when you see the ability to compute, doubling or tripling, in months, not years, I think it becomes harder to predict. I think the best thing that we can do is prepare for the unknown. And look, we do know, no matter what, that we're going to need access to these rare earth elements. We're going to need massive amounts of electric power. We do know those things. We do know that, we're already in World War III as far as the cyber war, when we've got viruses being deployed that can learn from their mistakes. Once they get in, they can change their skin and adapt, right? So this is happening every single day right now. But as far as, the quantum race, look, all of these nations, including us, I believe, again, are recording data that's being transmitted right now that can't be decrypted. But imagine what happens when that info can be decrypted and suddenly everyone knows everything about everyone else. Like, I don't know where that goes, but it's coming.
So how can Americans protect themselves from first of all, the negative effects of AI, and how can they differentiate what is good AI from bad AI, if possible?
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible. I think the answer lies somewhere with data sovereignty and owning your own AI. Right now, we're using AI programs that are not that we don't own. These programs are taking, especially the LLMs, are taking our information, our data. They're selling it. They're using it to sell stuff to us or using it against us. But either way, we're not getting paid from it, and we're not benefiting from it at all. And we are being influenced by whatever algorithm changes they're making at the time. We need to own our own data. We need to own our own AI. And so the machine is working for us instead of us working for the machine. I think that's on an individual level and on, corporate levels and on the country level. Like, if we don't own our data and we don't own our AI, then we're going to be ruled by somebody else's algorithms.
How can people, because I think this is the biggest issue, Chris, that people don't understand where the power of AI comes from. And the power of AI comes from you and me, because it's our information. When we're putting information on the cloud, that's food and that drives AI learning. And people say, well, my information is secure because I have a password. No, your information is secure from other people. Mm-hmm. Who would want to access your information maliciously. But when you get into the terms of service, you are authorizing, and this is even if you have corporate, you have individual, does not matter. When you are putting your information into the cloud, your pictures, your documents, your spreadsheets, anything that you put into the cloud, that is being used for machine learning. Hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of terabytes of data daily are now going into machine learning because it's an ever-refreshing pool of additional data points that AI can use to compare and contrast what it learned yesterday. And it can test those theories on new information that's coming in today. And so with that, people are like, well, I don't want to get bought into the whole AI thing. Okay, well, then stop feeding AI. Stop putting your things into the cloud. I mean, I just bought this laptop not too long ago, and you're starting to see laptops now that don't have USB cables because they want your material living in the cloud. They don't want you saving things to a detachable thumb drive. That's your data. Remember Klaus Schwab, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Put everything on the cloud. How many people buy movies and then just store them? Oh, I have my online library. Right, but you don't own that. Go to the Goodwill, pay $1.50 or $2 for a couple of DVDs. You'll feel better, and you actually own it. But how do we get people to stop? First of all, cloud dependency, that's the first thing. And the ease and the convenience of AI, that's the second problem.
Yeah, look, right now it's a tall order because it's very enticing, right? It can solve problems. It can tell us how to fix the dishwasher that's broken without calling the service guy. It can find the cheapest, pair of skis or snowboards or whatever it is. It can do all these things, and they're very helpful. But at the same time, every interaction, it is learning from us. It is taking our data. When you search on Google, it knows that you're searching for this one thing. But when you're using AI and you're talking to it, an LLM for hours and hours a day, we are the ones that AI is training off. You're absolutely right. So it is learning from absolutely everything we do, and we do not own everything that we are creating. We do not own that data. We need to be able to find a way to own our data. It needs to be sovereign. We need to own and control our own AIs. And if we don't, and look, all of these guys right now, like you say, they're taking away the USB drives. They don't want us to own our own data. They want to own it so they can, but first of all, charge us for it, and second of all, profit from it. So unless we take back control of our data, I think we're essentially giving up, and we're in a very bad situation.
There was the movie Contact, if you remember. That was the Carl Sagan book that was made into the movie with Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster. And there is a scene in that movie when Jodie Foster's character, she's in front of the International Machine Consortium, the IMC, and they're asking her as a potential candidate to go into this machine that the schematics for which were sent down. And one of the panelists asks her, if you could ask a foreign intelligence, an alien intelligence, one question, what would it be? And her answer was actually very interesting. She said, how did you do it? And the interviewer says, would explain that. She said, well, how did you do it? How did you survive your technological adolescence without destroying yourselves? And you think about it in this perspective. I mean, Terminator and Terminator 2, that was always, when I was a kid, that was sci-fi. Like, we're never going to have robots running around launching nuclear wars against humanity. Well, when you actually have AI now that is on the verge of becoming sentient. People say, well, it'll take 100 years before artificial intelligence could become sentient. Well, I mean, you're already starting to see evidence now where machine systems are recognizing attempts to take them offline and are now taking countermeasures to protect themselves. Is it sentient? Well, maybe it's quasi-sentient, but if it recognizes a threat against itself, okay, well, now we're now starting to go into that sci-fi territory. So I guess the question is, how do we engage in this morally and ethically? And I think there has to be a moral and ethical conversation about what we're doing here. How do we engage in moral and ethical advancement of technology without putting ourselves in a situation where we become a victim of our own creation?
I mean, I think the only way we can do it is to control the standards, right? I mean, the U.S. for decades has controlled the standards in space, in electronics, because we had the initiative, we had the advantage, we created all this stuff. But when it comes to AI, that is up for grabs. Like if the country that controls the standards doesn't have a clear set of moral values, then I think we lose, right? In this country, again, we're, call it what you want, but we are a faith-based country in my mind, and we have certain moral values that we adhere to and we believe in, and that we all attempt to follow. But when you're dealing with a country that doesn't have those same standards, then what do they really care? Where this thing ends up? As long as the CCP survives, I mean, they're really the only goal of the CCP is to survive and thrive, not to look after its people. I mean, in my mind. So I think if we can dominate the standards, if we can control the standards, then we can keep those guardrails on. But if we don't have those guardrails, like you say, I mean, AIs that have understood that they're going to be taken offline have made attempts to elude that and evade that possibility. I think the famous case was the made up story about the engineer who was going to do it, and the AI threatened to tell his wife about this fictitious affair he was having. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds like it's a fun story, but it's also terrifying. Like if it's doing that right now, what's it going to be doing a year from now?
That's the thing. I mean, we did a segment a couple of months ago, actually, on just the advancement of AI in terms of image generation, where a year ago it was painfully obvious what was a AI generated image, and today, I mean, it's generating video that is virtually indistinguishable from real or live video feed. So, I mean, again, I think that's a very interesting question about where are we going to be in a year from now. When we talk about the Chinese Communist Party, and I think about this, I think the days of bombs and bullets and bayonets and bunkers, I think largely from a warfare standpoint is pretty much it's an antiquated concept. During the first Gulf War, when American troops were now taking over and they were liberating Iraq, and they were going into Saddam Hussein's palaces, they were finding pallets and pallets and pallets of American currency. And one of the leading theories here was that Iraq was in the process of dumping the American dollar in favor for the euro. They were going to start settling their petroleum transactions, not in American dollars, but in euros. And given the fact that OPEC was founded in Baghdad, OPEC has always traditionally taken Baghdad's lead in business dealings. So the concept here was, well, Iraq knew it could never fight a war or win a war against the United States. But what they could do is serve as the linchpin in an economic war that could absolutely cripple the United States. If we lost the settling of petroleum transactions by OPEC in American dollars for another currency, that would, and there would be a necessary collapse of our stock and bond market, our real estate market, so on and so forth. And so, in theory, yes, Iraq could actually engage in effective economic warfare against the United States. Is this ultimately what the goal here is with the Chinese Communist Party? They don't want to risk a war because a war could go nuclear and nobody wins. That's mutually assured destruction. But if they can do it surreptitiously and they can lead American citizens to engage in the very behavior that facilitates the demise of the West in the favor of the CCP, is this what we're looking at?
I mean, look, it makes a lot of sense, right? War is expensive, like you said. I mean, sending over troops and bombs and missiles and drones and so on, that costs a lot of money, takes a lot of production from other stuff they want to be working on. Risk and stuff certain out. But cyber warfare is cheap, right? I mean, again, they employ tens of thousands of people every day to do nothing but steal our data and attack our systems, and scout our networks. And so why wouldn't they do it that way? And they've been doing this for years, along with the North Koreans, the Iranians, and the Russians. And I think this is the future of warfare, and I think we're already in it.
I think you are absolutely 110% spot on correct. It's a terrifying prospect, and I think it's one that we have to keep our finger on the pulse of, to be honest with you. And, I mean, we have to learn how to be able to use this technology responsibly. Chris Hoare, if people want to find out more about your organization, what's the best website for them to go to?
It's sat123.com. That's SAT123.com. What we provide are communications, handheld communications like satellite phones, satellite internet units for free with activation for even when someone does finally get a hold of our power grid and take it offline for an extended amount of time.
All right. Sounds good. Chris Hoare, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. God bless. Stay safe. We'll get you back on again soon.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you. All right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, our favorite Los Angeles-based private detective, Nils Gravilius, is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about, actually, I think we had an update on the topic here. So we're going to fill you in on that topic when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
How can it talk? It's not a real voice. This box just interprets signals from the computer and turns them into sound.
Shall we play a game?
Oh.
I think I missed him.
Yeah, weird, isn't it? Love to.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Unleashing your humble alpha is the key factor to unlocking profound leadership, unshakable confidence, clarity of purpose, and the quality of life you dream of. As combat veterans and military leaders Stephen Kuhn and Lane Balone decode how you can master your life, conquer everything that stands in your way, improve your ability to cope with stress, and run toward greatness. You can find Unleash Your Humble Alpha on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling. Time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Hollywood has sold its soul with woke agendas, hypocritical elites, and a culture in ruins. But one man dares to fight back. Mike Holman, the world's greatest newsman, teams up with billionaire Pierce Polk. Armed with cutting-edge AI and unlimited grit, they infiltrate Tinseltown's underbelly, expose the rot, and launch an all-out assault on the media machine. Blockbusters, written by best-selling author Scott McKay. It's a satirical thrill ride to reclaim American storytelling and disrupt the oligarchy and ignite the spark of true culture. Because some blockbusters are meant to bust the system and save the silver screen, one blockbuster at a time. You can find Blockbusters in Amazon.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, you just look at that. It's so sad.
In the southern colonies could most aptly be characterized as agrarian pre-capital.
All right, of course that's your
Hang on a
contention.
second.
You're a first-year grad student. You just got finished reading some Marxian historian, Pete Garrison probably. You're gonna be convinced of that till next month when you get to James Lemon. Then you're gonna be talking about how the economies of Virginia and Pennsylvania were entrepreneurial and capitalist way back in 1740. That's gonna last until next year. You're gonna be in here regurgitating Gordon Wood, talking about, you know, the pre-revolutionary utopia and the capital forming effects of military mobilization.
Well, as a matter of fact, I won't, because Wood drastically underestimates the impact
Wood
of social...
drastically underestimates the impact of social distinctions predicated upon wealth, especially inherited wealth. You got that from Vickers. Work in Essex County, page 98, right? Yeah, I read that too. Were you gonna plagiarize the whole thing for us? Do you have any thoughts of your own on this matter? Or do you, is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls, embarrass my friend? See, the sad thing about a guy like you is in 50 years, you're gonna start doing some thinking on your own, and you're gonna come up with the fact that there are two certainties in life. One, don't do that. And two, you dropped 150 grand on a fucking education you could have got for $1.50 in late charges at the public library.
Yeah, but I will have a degree. And you'll be serving my kids fries at a drive-thru on our way to a skiing trip.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but at least I won't be unoriginal. But, I mean, if you have a problem like that, I mean, we could just step outside. We could figure it out.
Oh, man, there's no problem. It's cool.
It's cool?
Yeah.
Cool. Fucking damn right it's cool. How you like me now?
Love that movie.
Makes me I gotta watch that movie, to be honest. But it kind of makes me feel like I'm standing in a restaurant or in a bar in Hanover, New Hampshire, with the Dartmouth crowd.
But is that not accurate?
Yep.
Having met so many in the Ivy League crowd, go up, whether it's DC, whether it's Boston, I find so many people who are excellent, experts at regurgitating passages that they've read, but have zero original thoughts, theories, or life experience that they could toss at a problem or a perspective issue.
Well, you just identified postgraduate work.
Mm-hmm. This is
So
why I
this is
disdain the think
postgraduate
tank
work.
crowd of DC so much.
It is not college today. And I think this is the issue. I mean, and, even Mike Rowe has talked about this. College today is not about expanding a person's mind. It used to be, maybe 50 or 60 years ago, it did. College, and especially postgraduate work today, is all about memorization and regurgitation on demand. And proof positive of this is the inability for college graduates to get out of their own way. In fact, more to the point, critical thinking skills are evil. Having a well-defined analytical framework is absolutely verboten in higher education. It used to be here's opinion A, here's opinion B, here are the merits of both, here's the objective, now which one suits. And there was, you have to compare, you have to contrast, you have to analyze, you have to juxtapose. But today, no, here is the truth. Everything else is a falsehood, fake news, whatever you want to call it, and that's it. There's no analytical skills, analytical framework, critical thinking skills that are being taught in education today. Simply memorize and regurgitate on demand.
And I'm going to send a clip to the producer because, you're going to want to see this. There's a famous clip of like 5 people deciding amongst them who likely has the highest IQ. And the girl who has like 2 PhDs, works in STEM, so on and so forth, ends up not even being close to the top. If I remember correctly, she ends up being the lowest person. It actually ends up being a Marine. Just a random podunk Marine. She assumes to be stupid because he's a Marine. We're going to have to, I'm going to send that clip to, you're going to love that because that properly distills exactly what I've met some of the most intelligent people not in Ivy League schools. I've met them friggin' on construction sites. I've met them in the Marine Corps. I've met them doing all sorts of stuff, but not in Ivy League schools, and that's sad.
Or producing podcasts.
Or producing podcasts. All right. Well, as I had teased earlier, we kind of changed this in the middle. We were going to talk about California's mental health loopholes, freeing killers and crooks with those laws, but wanted to talk a little bit more about something that broke here recently. 11 suspected gang members arrested in sex trafficking ring along the Figueroa corridor in South L.A. And as one headline, opinion piece actually read, quote, "Can anyone rescue the trafficked girls of LA's Figueroa Street?" Well, you know what? The cartels, they certainly have their handle on the commodities that they deal with. Human beings and drugs. And we're going to get into that here in just a second. Actually, we're going to talk about why the cartel really, really likes human trafficking above drugs. And there's a very good reason for that. Joining us is Nils Gravilius, Los Angeles-based private detective. He has been on the program many times. Nils, great to have you. How are you?
Well, I'm lovely and perfect, Mr. Hansen, Mr. Akyat. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening. How are things out there in the once great state of California?
Crawling with criminality. It's a target-rich environment for a bum like me. I wanted both of you esteemed gentlemen to know that my mother was born in Andover, while my grandfather was an undergrad at Dartmouth, and I was expected to attend Dartmouth. Except I enlisted in the Army on my 17th birthday and couldn't drop out from the whole thing fast enough.
So you have the Granite State connection, Nils. I love that. That's great. Have you been up here recently?
I've not been to New Hampshire ever, and I need to make a point of visiting New Hampshire. One of the roughest guys I ever knew in the Army was a fellow who put himself through the Ranger School without being a paratrooper, who was a swamp Yankee from Western Massachusetts. The man was as hard as a paving stone. He was into NASCAR, pro wrestling, competitive shooting, and he was just an all-around badass, the sort of man you'd want in your platoon if you were in an infantry unit, which I was. I was in the scout platoon, first of the 58th Infantry at the time, but I've taken us off our game a bit here with this discourse
Oh, that's
on
okay.
what
I
you
mean, hey, you
gentlemen
know
were
what?
talking about.
Waxing philosophically is something that we do here, so that's okay. I just wanted to know if the swamp creature from Western Mass had a soft side, or was it always all hardcore all the time?
It depended on how many cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon he had laundered his tonsils with.
I'll bet
A
you.
pair of
I'll bet you if we got him a
twins-
kitten, he would soften right up.
No, there were a pair of girls who were dancers at a place called Little Richard's on Victory Drive in Columbus, Georgia, and one was large and the other was larger. And Chuck had a tendency to gravitate toward these girls. You know, he'd undergo a personality change somewhere between the 11th or 18th can of Pabst Blue Ribbon, and all bets were off after that. That's what I can say.
Well,
And
when you get those,
aren't you hooking up a polygraph or something, Hanson?
when you get those chunky Georgia strippers, and then you get a couple of cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon, it's the beer goggles, man. At 2 a.m. after about a dozen cans of PBR, they all look good.
Well, yes, and I managed to outdistance that some time ago, but I wanted to turn your attention to something that's little known to the civilian audience, and I'm sure you gentlemen are conversant in this. It's the nexus between organized crime, even non-traditional organized crime, and that's what we're talking about here, is these street gangs trafficking in young girls. Now, underage girls from Latin America, Central America, who have been discharged into our larger country, have been suborned by these guys, introduced to narcotics, and gang raped in order to get them, in such a condition that they can accept processing between 8 and 12 men on any given day in their automobiles or in the bushes or whatever. And I want to point something else out. We have a long-standing prostitution problem in Los Angeles. It's not just low-level stuff like this, drug-addicted streetwalkers. We also have Russian organized crime, trafficking, high-end former models, that sort of thing. Women up to age 50 are being used as prostitutes in various operations. We have Asian organized crime run mostly by women that traffic those who can't speak English, who have to work off their passage to the United States.
Mama Sons.
Working as prostitutes in Asian massage parlors. But specifically the corridor we call the Figueroa corridor is remarkably interesting. Los Angeles has a female mayor, and a majority of our city council in Los Angeles are women. They have passed policy after policy, law after law, instructing LAPD and the LA sheriffs that every single member of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors is a woman, instructing them to go easy on human trafficking of this sort. And it is because these organized crime groups, non-traditional organized crime groups, street gangs, have equity in the machinery running the state of California, the county of Los Angeles, and the city of Los Angeles. That's I can't state it more effectively than that. Now, the city attorney in Los Angeles, Heidi Feldstein, has gone after these gangs, and she's an outlier for having done so. Heidi is somebody I know and respect, but most of the people on the Los Angeles City Council are an easy lay for organized crime, and I don't want to mix metaphors here, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
I think
the other aspect of this is these women that they're kidnapped, they're forced into this life. How do they change? How do they recover from this? If they're put into a drug rehab in Los Angeles, they're introduced to Suboxone, which is just another narcotic, and the chain continues. And the liberal NGOs, the leftist NGOs, that serve as the filter for taxpayer money, they're just parasites. They'll take the money and they'll continue keeping these young women working as prostitutes. They'll get out of their drug rehab, and within a day or two, they're right back on the whore track on South Figueroa. Now, let's talk a little bit about the men patronizing these young women who are anywhere between the ages of 12 and 30. The men patronizing them are often paying for their trip around the block with stolen property. So we have another organized crime problem here. The pimps function as fences of stolen property. And what if I'm down there and I want to have a couple of 13-year-old girls to keep me company for an hour or so? Won't I need some party favors? Something, maybe some Bolivian marching powder, or maybe a little Fetty, smoke some Fetty to salve my conscience so I can live with myself after doing something like that? Well, the pimps are selling all that. Okay, so here we have like the hat trick. We've got the big three: drug dealing, human trafficking, and fencing stolen property. Now, Mr. Hansen a minute ago was talking about why human trafficking is lower risk for non-traditional organized crime than drug trafficking. If you burn a hooker, she's not going to murder you. If you burn your Fetty supplier, you might wind up bagged and tagged. It's a rough world, right?
It wasn't so much that I was going to say that it was. I forget exactly how you worded it, but I'm looking at. I'm saying from a just from a commodity standpoint. If I'm a druggie and you sell me a bag of cocaine and I use that cocaine, once I use that cocaine, it's gone. I have to produce more. I have to traffic more. I have to sell more. But if you sell me or you rent me, more appropriately, an underage hooker, I use that underage hooker, you get her back, wash, rinse, repeat. There's literally no limit to the number of times that human being can be monetized. And same thing, if they get caught, if they get deported, they'll get them right back again. Whereas if your cocaine gets seized, if your methamphetamine or your marijuana gets seized, it becomes evidence until such time as it gets destroyed. It doesn't happen like that with human beings. So in terms of the cost-benefit analysis, focusing on human trafficking as opposed to trafficking illicit narcotics, clearly, you go, Willie Brown said, I rob banks because that's where the money is. Why are the cartels starting to engage more and more and more predominantly in human trafficking and in human hides? Because that's where the money is.
And the downside of the nefarious part. So this is the Los Angeles-based Hoover criminal gang, 31-count indictment charges. Weirdly, so I'm looking at the list of these, Amaya Armstead, Kenyandre Young, Naziz Harris, Avery Amoko. Weird nicknames ranging from Lady Duck, Young Poke, In Four Hands, J Money, Vermont Star, Popcorn, so on and so forth.
Popcorn.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Joe Biden's buddy there.
That's Corn Pop.
Oh, that's Corn Pop. I'm sorry. I got excited
the defendants
there.
are charged with various other crimes, including sex trafficking of minors, sex trafficking through forced fraud, coercion, transportation of a minor for sex trafficking, sexual exploitation of a child, drug trafficking, conspiracy, money laundering, and to promote specified unlawful activity, and conspiracy to straw purchase firearms. These people have rap sheets as long as the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. It is, but the revolving door of illegal immigrants coming across the southern border has only in perpetuity emboldened these people and made it so much easier to sex traffic to a degree that it is almost impossible to crack down effectively in sanctuary cities all over the United States, not just LA.
Well, yes. Okay, so the way that they structure their criminal organization, they have the peewees slinging the dope. And then the older gang members, the veteranos, they handle the girls because they're old enough to understand all of the nuances, I guess, of prostitution and keep the Johns in line, that sort of thing. The girls are responsible for cultivating their own clientele. The job of the older gang members is just making sure that the girls come back and that another gang doesn't come in and poach their females. But they're still traded like cattle, to Mr. Hansen's point. This is like being on the Dallas Cowboys, only you don't get a $2 million signing bonus. Okay.
One thing that I see throughout a lot of these cases is I see women not protecting other women and actually being a harm under the guise of being understanding towards women who engage in prostitution. They actually end up incentivizing and emboldening an industry that lynches on sex trafficking.
You're precisely correct, Julian. And by the time any of these women is 45 or 50, their actual relationships are with other women. They've seen so much of men. Yeah? If they survive the drug addiction, the life on the street, everything else, by the time they're 50, they're a cropped-haired, prison matron, whatever. I've seen it over and over and over again. Now, from a detective's point of view, let's talk about prostitutes, right? A prostitute is a terrible risk for a bail bondsman because they're able to commoditize themselves so quickly and so interchangeably. But they're a great informant for a law enforcement agency, right? The danger to the law enforcement agency is the detective gets too close to his informants, which is why you have to have the cops work in pairs and be completely accountable for what it is that they're doing in a prostitution operation. Notoriously, 30 years ago, there was a vice detective on LAPD who was running his own string of call girls while he was still in administrative vice. And when he got fired from the LAPD, he just went to work for the Church of Scientology.
Wow. What disturbs me is often the people who defend the prostitution, I'm going to say career, or as a lifestyle choice. The people who commonly say, oh, well, they had no other choice. This is America. You have many other choices. And maybe third world countries where you have 60+% unemployment rate. Yeah, sure. But here in America, you have many other choices. The people who are commonly the most empathetic towards the women in this case actually do more harm than good to help prop up the industry because they don't allow us to actually crack down on the industry itself. And those same people are also the most empathetic towards the illegal, is the exact same population who are the most empathetic towards illegal immigration and human trafficking overall. Always under the guise of doing something good, they end up emboldening the worst types of people in the worst types of ways.
Well, one of the most effective ways to go after this form of exploitation is to create a searchable, immediately promoted database of all of the people participating, whether it's the pimps, the fences, the fixers, and the johns. In municipalities, counties, etc., where they put men's photos on billboards for soliciting for prostitution, the prostitution problem shrinks to almost nothing. Okay, and this is not a victimless crime, to Julian's point here. The advocates for legalization of prostitution are monsters.
More to your point, Grills, on that. Up here in New England, our neighbor to the west, Vermont, Senate Bill 125 and Senate Bill 54 in the 2025-2026 legislative sessions. You have all these big-hearted progressives that are seeking to decriminalize what they would consider to be consensual sexual intercourse and indiscriminate sexual intercourse for adults, and then they say, but we'll still be able to maintain the prohibitions on human trafficking or any type of sex sale scenarios that involve use of or coercion, force, fraud, anything else like that. But when you look at it, the overwhelming majority of sex workers are in some way, shape, or form being coerced or trafficked in the course of their, put it in air fingers quotes, duties. So you identify them correctly, and I believe morally, ethically as monsters. But from a legal standpoint, how do people fight against the progressive legislative push to legalize the world's oldest profession?
Well, by pointing out the worst examples. My very first investigative job ever came to me in the infantry when the sergeant major made me the case contact investigator for the brigade VD clinic because I spoke Korean reasonably well, yet I didn't patronize the brothels. So it was my job to go out and lasso the girls who were infected with penicillin-resistant STDs and get them in for treatment by the United States Army or the Korean Public Health Service. And it was actually in the course of that work that I was recruited to counterintelligence. The soldiers who had held the job before me wound up taking hefty bribes from the women running the brothels to go away. The penalty for not getting their girls treated was the sergeant major would place their establishment off limits. I knew American soldiers who would catch the clap 5 times in a 1-year tour on the DMZ. I'm not even joking. So it's an ongoing problem. Korea has largely gotten away from it because they're now a prosperous country. Most of the ajimas running the prostitution operations up by the DMZ were in fact themselves as teenagers made prostitutes for the Japanese army contemporaneous with Japan's occupation of Korea. So it's a problem that can be solved. The best solvent of all, though, is sunshine, bright sunshine. Identify the people involved, how it is that they've benefited, and show the consequence of prostitution.
All right, Nils, we're getting the music here. We're coming up at the top of the hour. I do want to get you back on here in the next couple of weeks because I want to talk about, in Vermont, Senate Bill 54 that seeks to do that. Quote, reforming Vermont's prostitution laws by repealing existing prohibitions against consensual sex work. And I think this is just an absolute abomination. I want to get your perspective on this, so I want to get you back on here in the next couple of weeks to have that conversation. Nils Gravilius, always a pleasure, my friend. Stay safe. Be well.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Hansen, Mr. Akyard. Try to behave. I know it's difficult up there in the Granite State.
We'll try to stay out of the papers, my friend. You do the same.
Roger that. Me too.
Be well. Thank you. All right, going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a Department of Homeland Security program that is preventing American college graduates from obtaining STEM jobs. That's right. Only foreign college graduates are being permitted to apply. Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at... I'm drawing a blank. I'm having a senior moment. What is... Landmark Legal Foundation. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Wow. I got to get more coffee. Michael O'Neill coming up right after this. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky, what a feeling.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday, the 18th day of November 2025. Great to have you along. All right, so STEM jobs.
Did you see those, before we get into this, did you see the atrium of the Bellagio just now?
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? FAO Schwartz Toy Store in downtown New York.
Never been there, but I've seen the pictures.
It was Duncan's toy chest in Home Alone.
Oh,
2.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually, you know, and it's funny when you said FAO Schwartz, the first thought I had was Duncan's toy chest. Can you go back to the other one? Not that one, but the other one.
The Christmas one at the Bellagio. There it is.
There we go. Yeah, that's a lot of...
looks like Duncan's toy chest.
Red, gold, and green, actually.
It reminded me, like, as soon as I saw it, it was like, that reminds me of my childhood.
Really?
My dad took me to FAO Schwartz Toy Store. We did a trip to D.C., went to go visit a couple cousins in Rhode Island on the way back, along with the Italian side of the family, along with stopping at FAO Schwartz Toy Store and seeing a lot of the sites in New York, Empire State Building, all that stuff. Yeah, my dad wanted to make sure I had a good understanding of not just the history of our government, taking me around D.C., but also our biggest city and some of the sites and all that stuff. It was a great experience.
That's quite a lot of glitz and glamour.
Oh, yeah. My eyes would hurt walking out of there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. That's right there. All right, well, talking about a lot going on, we were talking earlier about Obama being the great divider. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, and I'd heard a couple of times, the term counter-tribalist, but I don't think I ever heard the term counter-tribalist used more than during Obama's term as president. A lot of people accused Obama of being a counter-tribalist, which is very simply a person who is actually a member of one tribe who is advocating for other tribes to the expense of his or her own tribe. And we talked about this quite a bit, on terrestrial radio programs that I've hosted. And I absolutely think that, listen, he was a globalist. Anybody who is a globalist, if you're not America first, interestingly enough, now Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out and developing her own little spin on MAGA because her and Trumpy are having a pissing match. That's going to be a really interesting thing. But, she's saying that Trump isn't American enough and that, that his brand of MAGA isn't pure and conservative enough. Only hers is. America first, America only is her term.
I'm America first. I'm America only. I don't give a shit about any other country or anybody, any citizen of any other country on the planet. I just don't care. The people in my house, in my state, in my country are the people I care about the most. Those are the people I would legislate for the most. Those are the people I'd advocate for the most. Those are the people I care about their well-being the most. This pissing contest, I think, is hilarious. But at the same time, I've often said the issue with MAGA is it is too centric around Trump and not centric enough around America first. And that if we're going to last the test of time, it needs to be America first, not about Trump. Because if it's about a personality, as soon as Trump is out of the game, it's done. It's over. This movement dies. If it's America first, that can last the test of time, and it doesn't have to be exclusive to either side of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle can adopt America first, and work for American citizens.
Well, I think too, in terms of, okay, so, we had the conversation about Obama
Theoretically.
being a counter-tribalist. We can also say that first of all, Obama's initial campaign and his initial election was absolutely a campaign and a cult of personality.
Yes.
And we saw that with Trump as well. And that's something that I have always warned my listeners about. Don't get caught up in the person, because the person will always come and go, ebb and flow. And so what happens when Trump, if you're a Trump sycophant, what happens when Trump's out of office? Guess what? What do you have left? And everything else in comparison to Trump pales in comparison to Trump. So again, let's get on the America first, not the Trump only wagon.
Also,
that's where the danger comes in.
Also, that's where you lose your principles. When everything is centric around Reagan, everything's centric around Trump, you lose your principles because you define your principles based on talking points and policy that one of the two ended up passing, rather than the underlying guard of what we are supposed to be doing as elected representatives in office. But
So, talking about the counter-tribalism thing, and listen, counter-tribalism exists well beyond and outside of the scope of just Obama. And case in point, if we can get that article pulled up here, with Department of Homeland Security preventing American college graduates from obtaining STEM jobs, allowing only foreign college graduates to apply for that. Of course, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So this is the OPT program. And again, we can pull that up one more time. Today, U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican out of Missouri, sends a letter to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem expressing strong support for the agency's reported plan to overhaul the optional training program. Schmidt requested a thorough review of OPT to begin the process of reforming or ending that program. To talk a little bit more about this and counter-tribalism abound, Michael O'Neill, our good friend, who is the Vice President of Legal Affairs at Landmark Legal Foundation. Mike, how are you?
Hey, it's good. It's good to be with you guys. How are y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic. Great to have you back.
Yep, absolutely. I'm glad you're talking about this OPT program. It really needs bigger and broader discussion.
All right, so give us the synopsis. I mean, obviously, I read the opening paragraph on that, but tell us a little bit more about what this is and what would the logic be in locking American college graduates out of obtaining domestic STEM jobs?
Yeah, certainly. Well, this is a regulatory program. So we talk a lot about H-1B visas, right? And what is an H-1B visa? Who is here? That's a visa program that's authorized by Congress via statute to bring in foreign workers to ostensibly fill jobs that Americans aren't able to fill. That's, again, how it's been sold to the American people. We can get into a debate about the efficacies of H-1B visas. A lot of people are talking about that. But there's another program called the Optional Practical Training Program, OPT program. It's not a creation of statute. It's not a creation of Congress. It's actually a regulatory creation created by the Department of Homeland Security years and years ago. And essentially what it does is it takes students who are admitted to this country on F-1 visas. Remember, if you're a student and you come here, if you're an international student, a non-immigrant student who comes in here to study for a term of to pursue a course of study and to obtain a degree from one of our universities or colleges, you're admitted here under the F-1 student visa program. Well, this is a program within the F-1 student visa program that permits individuals with certain degrees to remain in the country in employment capacity for up to 3 years after they've graduated from college. So if you graduate with a STEM degree, for example, you're allowed to be in the country for up to 36 months to pursue employment opportunities. And essentially, it's under this practical training. Ostensibly, it's under this practical training rubric. But really, what it is it's a method. It's a way that tech companies can use to secure a pool of cheap foreign labor. So as opposed to hiring a 22 or 23-year-old American college graduate, they can enroll somebody in this OPT program, foreign-born student, non-immigrant who's going to have to be subject to who's going to have to leave the country after 3 years, but can work into an entry-level job. Interestingly, gentlemen, this is a really important thing, is these tech companies that hire these individuals, that employ these individuals under these OPT programs, it's really cost-effective for them. So that's why you say, why would you want to have it? Well, it's cost effective for the tech companies. Number one, they don't have to pay FICA taxes on these employees, if you can believe that. Number two, these employees, these students, quote unquote students, these individuals who are here on F1 visas, are beholden to their corporate overlords, essentially, right? And so they understand that as condition of them being and remaining in the United States, they have to retain this employment. So, of course, there's a disparity in the bargaining power and the power dynamic structure there. So essentially what happens is these tech companies are allowed to have this pool of cheaper foreign labor that they can, of course, draw from every time there's a new crop of graduates. And what's interesting about this is everybody talks about the H-1B visa program. This actually dwarfs it. There's about 600,000 individuals in this country that are employed in the OPT program, taking jobs from, again, recent American college graduate workers in STEM fields.
So this is something that I've warned about over the years quite a bit. And the reason why is because I've commonly said that when you bring in mass amounts of low-wage illegal labor, where, especially from South America, where the average pay per hour is about $2 per hour, even minimum wage in the United States is 5 to 8 times that. Then at this level, the F1 visas, you're looking at people who are coming in at the higher level, middle management, tech level, but they're still coming in significantly below what the average college graduate would be getting. So you're dropping the wage floor out at the bottom of the entire wage market throughout the whole country, and you're capping the wage market. So now everybody in this bracket who should be getting jobs isn't getting jobs. In order to accept a job, you have to take the job at such a low wage that you're not even able to pay back your college student loans.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. And it does a disservice to these, especially I'm thinking of Gen Z a lot right now. I'm talking about young individuals. You're talking about individuals between the ages of 22 and 33 years old. And think about all of the things right now that they're facing: housing crisis, cost of healthcare, cost of student loans, now job prospects. Let me tell you something that's interesting. The number 2, and this is what Senator Schmidt actually released just today about this, and this is an interesting fact. If I were to tell you that the number 2 degree with the highest, the degree with the second highest unemployment of recent college graduates, your head's going to explode. It's physics majors. If you graduate with a physics degree in this country, you think, okay, well, physics, that's a pretty useful science, hard science degree to have. They have the second highest rate of unemployment among recent college graduates. You know what else is in the top 10? Computer engineering, computer science. You've been telling these young people that, hey, go get a STEM degree, go get a computer science degree, go get a computer engineering degree, and you're going to get a job when you graduate from college. Well, these regulatory programs like the OPT program undermine the job prospects of recent American college graduates and have placed, and you can't tell me that 600,000 individuals enrolled in this OPT program doesn't affect the job prospects of recent American college graduates who are facing, think about this, you're talking about non-dischargeable student loan, you're talking about the cost of housing, the cost of healthcare, all of these things that these Gen Z folks are facing. And now on top of that, you have this burdensome regulatory process. And we can get into about the legality of it, the fact that I keep saying it's a regulatory program, which is really important because from a legal standpoint, it really kind of undermines the legality and the constitutionality of it. We can get into that in a few minutes. We're talking about policy of it right now.
So I have to ask, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second,
sure.
Mike. Are we not just becoming a victim of our own devices? When we talk about Gen Z, if I had my druthers, if I have a South Korean computer programming, somebody who just graduated with a degree, a bachelor's degree in computer programming. I've got somebody who's been here on an H1, on an F1 visa from South Korea. Or I've got, Julie from, Rehoboth Beach. I'm probably going to wind up wanting to go with the South Korean person simply because I know that I'm getting work ethic. I'm not getting somebody who's woke, who's going to walk in there with a college degree and tell me how to run the company. Who's not going to be demanding all this time off and who's probably going to be expecting a corner office, a fat expense account, an Amex Platinum company card, and a $350,000 salary plus 6 months worth of vacation time. I know I'm exaggerating slightly, but I mean when you look at the viable job pool here in this country, you have people. Gen Z is the least employable generation out there because of what they are, their lack of work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna take a little bit of pushback on that. I'm not. I don't want to. If it's anything, if that's Gen Z, you're talking about people in their. I guess what's Gen Z, right? People in their late teens.
I gotta be honest. I can't keep track of it. The 20-somethings,
Yeah.
the college grads,
Yeah, okay,
22,
20-somethings.
23,
I wanna do a little
24-year-old.
pushback on that. If they're like that, Keith, that's on us. You know what I mean? If you're, now I'm not saying that they shouldn't. That they're. It's incumbent. I'm a Gen X guy. I think that we've done a disservice to Gen Z. We've taught them. We've created this, and exacerbating the situation. Again, setting aside all in the hypothetical you posit, for example, Keith. I think obviously yes. If you have a disparity in qualifications or in work ethic or in who's going to be the right fit for your company, then that's another thing. But all things being equal, you should put the American worker over the foreign-born worker. I think again, all things being equal. But again, to defend a little bit of Gen Z. Look, I'm the first one to go after millennials. Maybe that's just my aim, but I want to look at Gen Z. I think that from a broader perspective, we've done them a disservice. Gen Xers, Boomers to a greater extent. If anything, we've kind of created these monsters, and now it's incumbent upon us to fix that. Look, Gen Z was integral in having Donald Trump get elected, right? The majority, I think, if you look at the actual voting numbers in it, it was Gen X and Gen Z who put Donald Trump over the edge. I think millennials and boomers overwhelmingly voted for Kamala Harris. So I'm not willing to cast Gen Z out as the least employable generation as much as I think. I think there's something to be gotten. I don't think they're lost yet. In other words, I think we can do some work as a society to kind of bring them back into the fold and get them involved in the American dream and the American experience.
I just want to read something from you to you from a Fortune magazine, a November 7th, 2024 article entitled "Gen Zers are being branded as unemployable. Here's what they can learn from the top 1% of applicants." It just goes on to say several surveys, including a recent one from Intelligent.com, shows that 1 in 6 employers are hesitant to hire a Gen Z employee. The survey of 966 companies found that 75% of all participants said that recent Gen Z hires were unsatisfactory, and that 6 out of 10 of those companies fired a recent college graduate in their first year of employment. Reasons cited by respondents are common themes. Gen Zers are perceived as unprofessional, unmotivated, and lacking in communication and teamwork skills.
Yeah, well, again, that it's incumbent. We can't just cast out a generation. It's incumbent upon us to bring them into the fold. If you're going to have Gen Zers, again, these are kids who went through COVID, right? Think about the experience of your typical Gen Zer. Again, it comes to mind, my daughter, for example. This is somebody who was locked down in COVID, who's been told, if you're a male, God forbid, if you're a white male in Gen Z, everything you've been taught your entire life, all of your natural inclinations, if you've been told you're toxic, you're inherently racist, you're wrong, you're locked down in COVID, you don't get to have any kind of social experience. You're given a phone from the minute you can walk virtually, so you have no social interaction. If anything, I want to accept blame for that. And if they're out in the wilderness, if they're unemployable, that's on us. We have to bring them into the fold. Again, we're getting into a different discussion about whether the OPT, the legality and policy of it. But I'm not willing to say to Gen Zers, again, go back to it. They voted for Trump, right? There was a significant numbers. Look at those. They were sick of it. They were casting off the nonsense of Kamala Harris and the leftists and the woke nonsense. And they were saying, look, we're going to give Donald Trump a shot here. So I think we as a society owe it. And I can't believe I'm sitting here defending a generation, but I do think we owe it to them to at least remove some of these barriers that we've already created. That essentially, what do? They help big tech companies get even richer at the expense of, I'm a physics major. Think about this, guys. You go to a college, you go to, say, a pretty good state school, right? You go to University of Michigan, and you decide you're going to study physics, or you decide you're going to study computer engineering. And you've been told, okay, get a computer engineering degree, you're going to get a job. And you go out there, you're 22 years old, you're a white man, you go out there, and you apply to 100 different places, and you get nothing but silence. If there's a regulatory program that incidentally is not even legal, is not even proper, that's keeping you from getting a job, I think that's something we should take a hard look at from a country.
I think this is where I get to invoke one of my favorite terms, the self-licking ice cream cone. Because as you're describing that, I'm thinking, okay, so, we have all of these, air fingers quote, problems with Gen Z. They have short attention spans. They did vote for Trump. They've been told, go out and get a tech job, go out and get a programming, go out and become a coder. I think that was the big kind of the joke. Go out and get a coding job, and, the fruits of the universe will land in your lap. But now So you have all of these tech jobs that are feeding an explosion of tech that but now as AI is developing, and just as we had opened the program up having a conversation, a pretty robust conversation about AI, now AI is actually putting a lot of these coders out of work. And but why are these coders out of work? These coders are out of work because of the technology that they were responsible for elevating to the point that ultimately could eliminate them from their job. So stay dependent on technology, and technology will eventually consume you. And that's, a statement that is proving true time and time and time again. So yeah, we don't want to necessarily cast Gen Z to the wolves. Is there hope for them? Yes. But how do we reinvigorate and in essence go back and retrain and reestablish a new worldview in a group of people that have an attention span like that of a grasshopper?
Yeah, I mean, I think the a couple things to unpack what you just said. Number one is AI is already, if these jobs are even harder to get because of the implementation of AI, then we should remove any regulatory programs that are keeping these jobs open for Americans. Okay, so that's to justify that. They're even on top of the fact that they're competing with foreign-born F1 visa holders. They have to compete with AI for these jobs, so they're even harder to get. So we should control what we can control. AI, we know, is going to take enough jobs as it is in the next, in the coming years. So, and then going back to helping Gen Z with the attention span, I don't know where that begins. That's a different conversation we can have about how do you kind of reprogram an entire generation that has been thrown on iPhones and internet and digital communications their entire lives. How do you reprogram it? That's a completely different conversation to have. There are a lot of thoughts I have on that, but I don't know if we have time for anything like that right now.
I wish we had more time because I'd really like to dive into it, because I think it's, it's a great surface level talk radio fodder piece. But I think in order to have an intelligent conversation about where do we go from here and how do we solve these problems, I think it's necessary that, unfortunately, we have to take a lot of side routes, examine and explore those issues, because I think there are a lot of factors that come into play here. It's not just a one or two issue thing like, oh, okay, well, if we eliminate OPT or if we revise OPT, maybe we say, okay, for every one F1 visa that you hire, that you have to make sure that there is that there's an American who's doing that too. But I mean, again, let's assume for a moment that there were no F1 visa holders that would be eligible for one of these positions. What's to say that there would be people who would actually take those positions? Would it be cost effective for the companies with salaries and benefits and FICA and everything else that they would be, all of those ancillary? Because there's a human resources cost to hiring a person as well too. So
yeah, certainly it's not there are, again, barriers to it, and it's not going to be a perfect one for one application. And of course, corporations and ultimately, if you want to get into it, shareholders are going to have to bear the burden of this. However, I come back to it. I say, where are your priorities lie here? Do your priorities lie with ensuring that Americans have opportunities for jobs, or do you want to find a way to circumvent this, the interests of the American worker and employ recent F1 visa holders, recent college graduates who are only going to be with your company at a maximum for 3 years, and then have to either apply for an H-1B visa or leave the country. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it, certainly that necessitate a further discussion. However, I do think, though, again, I go back to the simple fact that you're seeing physics, computer engineering, computer science degrees. These are all folks who are recent college graduates who have the highest rate of unemployment amongst recent college graduates. And you have to say, there are people who want those jobs, who are Americans, who would presumably be able to fill those jobs and do a good job in those jobs and possibly grow beyond 3 years and take knowledge that they learn in those jobs and pass them on to subsequent people, as opposed to just being temporary workers here up to 3 years with really no stake in anything.
So what do you see under the Trump administration right now happening with OPT?
Yeah, so that's interesting. There's some movement, as I said. They're talking about it. There's certain people. There's a lot of moving parts with this. You have very strong interest, particularly tech interest, obviously, are aligned in favor of the OPT program. And this has been litigated, and that's a whole other discussion. But there was litigations. Courts have actually signed off on this. The DC Circuit said that this program was legal. Their reasoning is very specious. They didn't utilize, we could get into the legalities of it. They didn't apply the major questions doctrine because the decision was made before the major questions doctrine. But there is obviously interest in the Trump administration. I think that they are contemplating promulgating a new interpretation of it, a new regulation. Again, this is a regulatory creation. This isn't something that's created by Congress. Incidentally, gentlemen, it's interesting. Congress really has the authority to set the caps about who's admitted in visas in this country. Remember, Congress sets the hard numbers for who's admitted in H-1B visas. Congress sets the number of who's admitted via F-1 visa. This is a program that is, again, created by the Department of Homeland Security. It was never authorized by Congress. So the legality of it is really something to question. And that's something that I think the Trump administration will grapple with if and when they're going to do anything about it.
So what would stop a company? Let's say that OPT gets overturned, or it's however it is clamped down on or shut down. Okay. What is stopping a company from saying, okay, listen, you know what? We're going to offer these same students, if they go back to their home countries, we're going to offer them a position remotely that's going to be even more attractive, because what they would be making here in the United States, now if they take that and they're let's say they're doing that, let's say $60,000 here in the United States, it's not going to get you to first base. But if it's $60,000 and I'm living in Manila, wow, you know what? Geez, I'll stay with you. I'm sure if I were a Filipino programmer who had a degree from the United States, and I had the interest of an American company who was willing to pay me $60,000 or $65,000 American dollars while I'm living in Manila. Listen, I'm your huckleberry, and I will be that until my fingers fall off.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's always corporate exit ramps that they're going to try, that they might want to utilize. That's just a feature of the system. If a corporation wants to make the decision to offshore its jobs, that it would be holding on onshore, then I guess to the extent to which they want to do that, then they're going to do it. However, again, if you're going to be employing people in America, and again, I think that there's obviously benefits for having even a tech company having people employed in the United States, then so be it. Then you're not going to have this barrier, this OPT program that's going to be working against the American tech worker. If you're talking about the whether a company is going to want to offshore their jobs, then that's a decision they're going to have to make. But as long as tech companies want to employ Americans in America, I don't think American workers should have to compete in America with foreign students.
I would agree.
And if they do, and gentlemen, let me make one more point. If they do, I think the entity who should decide that is Congress. Congress sets the immigration laws in this country and determines who comes in and how many people come in and the conditions under which they remain in this country. It shouldn't be for bureaucrats to decide that, i.e. the Department of Homeland Security. If anybody's going to make a decision to authorize an OPT program, it should be Congress. It shouldn't be the Department of Homeland Security, an administrative agency.
Well, I think no matter how you slice it, Michael, I think that's a really good argument for people getting into skilled trades, because I don't know, the last time I looked, there weren't an awful lot of unemployed HVAC technicians or plumbers or electricians. So, listen, there's certainly a lot of merit to being in a skilled trade. Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs for Landmark Legal Foundation. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us tonight, and we'll get you back on again soon.
Take care, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
All right. God bless. Thank you again. And that is going to do it for this Tuesday night edition of Granite State Live. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Certainly Michael O'Neill from Landmark Legal Foundation, Chris Hoare from SAT123.com, and, of course, our good friend Nils Gravilius out there in Los Angeles. And, Julian, thank you to you as well.
Hey, and don't forget to join the Ram TV Live family. If you're not a part of the Ram TV Live family, you're missing out on a lot of great content from this show, my show, Drew Allen's show, Elsa Kurtz, and we have plenty more. We're going to keep providing you with great content. Make sure to join, make sure to like, subscribe, share with everybody so we can keep giving you these great interviews and all this great information where you're just not going to get it elsewhere.
All right. Everybody, have a great week. Stay safe. We will not be here next week. It is Thanksgiving weekend. Everybody is taken off to head off with their respective families, so we will be back the following Tuesday to do it all over again. Until then, stay safe, be well, and remember, be nice to one another. Civility does work. God bless everybody.
Gotta go 1. No. Oh, yeah. 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. I would rank you as a 6, not meaning that you're not intelligent. I also think that I don't place a lot of value on the military. Period.
I'd probably do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry.
I'm the villain this episode.
Does anyone think they're like at either end of the spectrum?
I'd say I'm 1, if nothing else, because I know what I'm about and I'm sure of that. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh.
Sorry. It's hard for me to look past the education part.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, immigrant parents, first generation going to college, humble, modest. 2, me, I don't know, PhD, cancer biology scientist. I work in a biotech company. We make COVID-19 testing kits, stuff like that. And then 6. It has nothing to do with your background. I don't think you really have the highest EQ out of all of us. Tyler, he ranked last for me personally because the way he carries himself. He was ranking intelligence based on his point of view. I literally thought when you said to open the computer, we're going to look at social media, that I didn't think an IQ test would be part of it.
It was kind of expected. We're being ranked by intelligence, an IQ test. It's not that far out the realm of possibility.
So number 1 is Raymond. Number 2 would be Kaylee. Number 3 will be Tyler. And number 4 would be Shada. Number 5 is Sean. And number 6 is Maria.